So the article I have for you today, it says, why some landlords don't want any of the $50 billion in rent assistance. Now, I've been saying this for a long time. Landlords do need assistance, but we don't want to take assistance if you're going to put strings to it that are going to cost us more money in the long run than just being able to get rid of those bad tenants. So let's see what this article says about it. A federal program designed to help people avoid eviction by paying their rent is running into an unexpected hurdle. Some landlords are turning down the payment, saying it comes with too many conditions. Congress has allocated about $50 billion for rental assistance to stave off a surge in evictions of tenants who lost their jobs during the pandemic and missed rent payments. The federal support is also meant to help struggling landlords who have to make mortgage payments and have been overwhelmed by tenants falling behind on their rent. I mean, it's an absolute great thing that the federal government is stepping in and providing money to landlords who are in need, who've been struggling because their tenants aren't paying, especially since they're the ones who put the eviction moratorium in place. But here's the problem. A lot of states, once they get that money, they're putting these, very strict stipulations on accepting it. Like saying, for example, well, if we give you any of the money, we're not going to give you the full amount that you're owed. We'll give you a percentage of what you're owed. And then if you take that money, you're not allowed to evict that tenant. That tenant has to stay in your place not paying you. And you might not be able to recover any more rent after that point in time. So if the eviction moratorium lasts another 6 months, you'd have to stick with that tenant for the next 6 months. Is that right? I don't think so. But anyway, thousands of building owners across the country are rejecting the government offer. They said the aid often has too many strings attached, such as preventing them from removing problematic tenants or compelling them to turn over sensitive financial information to government agencies or contractors. There's just too many stipulations on getting that money. Their decision to forego the cash could be costly for tens of thousands of renters who have been counting on that aid and who are vulnerable when the national ban on most evictions expires at the end of March, though the government could extend it again. And they probably will, honest truth. I mean, it looks like this eviction moratorium stuff could go on for, at least till the end of the year. The government has said the money should be used to help low-income tenants pay back part or all of their missed rent for up to 12 months. In Houston, a nonprofit charged with administering the pandemic rental assistance last year said more than 5,600 households who applied for money had a landlord who refused to take it. Well, part of the problem is they're having this nonprofit in charge of it. And this nonprofit might be like, oh, well, you can't evict the tenant if you take it. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but this person, they've proven that they're unable to pay. So, even if I took a chunk of money now, that's that only covers them up till right now. That doesn't cover any future non-payment of rent. In Boston, one tenant attorney said at least 20% of his current cases involve a landlord who refused the funds. I've seen it happen more and more, said Brian Miller, an attorney at Greater Boston Legal Services. The city of LA said that nearly half its tenants received rental assistance last year, had landlords who declined to participate in the program. The problem. I call the program the problem. I mean, just telling you that there is a problem with the program. States and cities have discretion over how the money is spent, including deciding whether tenants can obtain all or only part of what they owe. Some rental assistance programs pay directly to the tenants, cutting out landlords that refuse to acknowledge the program. And that's part of the problem right there. If you're paying the tenant can then just refuse to forward that fund onto their landlord, pocket it, spend it on whatever they want, and then claim that the landlord, isn't accepting the money. And that's just not true. The money should always come directly to the landlord and never go to the tenant, in my opinion. A representative of the Treasury Department, which oversees funding at the federal level, declined to comment on landlord objections to some of the conditions set by local programs. And the Treasury Department has no control over what these local programs are doing, and that's why they declined to comment. And, the problem is, though, that they could easily put the stipulation out that, hey, this money is meant for the landlords and not for, paying directly to the tenants, okay? But they don't, and a lot of government programs are just complete, wastes of money. And you can see it. You can just see how the money is misappropriated, misused, and why a lot of landlords just don't want to accept it. The federal eviction moratorium doesn't guarantee renters the right to renew their leases. When leases expire, that is when many landlords weigh the government's cash against the chance to remove a tenant the owner no longer wants in the building. And that's exactly what I advised everyone to do in one of my previous videos. Wait till that lease expires, and then you can get rid of that tenant, put one in your unit that will pay, and it's just too bad for them. You know, there's nothing they can do about that. It's 100% legal, and, you know, though maybe you do lose out on a few months of rent, but that's better than having non-paying tenants stuck in your property. That was the case with Christina Kelly, a home care aide in Omaha, Nebraska, and that's exactly the lady that I talked about before, oddly enough. She lived in a house with her 17-year-old son, paying $850 a month in rent. After losing her job and when unemployment insurance ran out in August, she fell behind on her rent. Her landlord moved to evict her in December after the lease was several months expired. Ms. Kelly found a job at a telemarketing agency and was approved for pandemic rental assistance that would cover her back rent plus one future month, totaling $3,000, but the landlord wouldn't accept it, and I wouldn't have accepted it either. She was very far behind on rent and only covering one future month of rent versus if I get a new tenant in there who can pay the rent indefinitely going forward. I'd much rather have the new tenant in there than, you know, get this little pittance and end up with a tenant who can't pay for who knows how long. His response was, "It's too little, too late," she said. A representative for the landlord didn't respond to requests for comment. Let's see. Still, some landlords are choosing to look for new tenants rather than stick with existing ones who haven't been paying. If you have someone who wasn't upholding their end of the contract, you're asking the housing provider to sign up for essentially another year of this person being in this unit unable to pay, said Amanda Gill, Government Affairs Director for the Florida Apartment Association, a landlord trade group. Ms. Gill said the majority of Florida landlords take rental assistance and work with tenants who are behind on payments. And that's the truth. Most landlords are going to take that rental assistance. But I don't blame any landlord who says, no, I'm going to pass on it. And it's just a better deal for me to wait for this lease to expire and put a new tenant in there who I know is going to be paying. Some local programs are a better deal than others. In Broward County, Florida, for example, assistance programs will only pay up to 60% of a tenant's back rent if it exceeds 1 month. Some landlords are unwilling to take that 40% haircut. You're really putting them in a really difficult position because they have ongoing obligations, Ms. Gill said. And I agree with that. You know, the best thing though is if you are in financial trouble with your landlord business, do whatever it takes to make sure that you are put in the position to make sure that you survive, okay?